So I'm all loaded up and ready to go for this EV road trip, stretching from one edge of the state of Tennessee into the other edge, basically from the Blue Ridge Mountains all the way down to the Mississippi River in Memphis. Got a trip needing to do for work, and I could have taken the Tesla that we have in the garage, which I normally do on work trips, but this one's a little bit further. And my rule of thumb is that if I'm going to be traveling, either on business or pleasure, and the drive is 8 hours, 9 hours, something like that, I prefer to get in a car and make the travel on the road versus hopping on an airplane. Because when you factor in, getting to the gate, getting through the security checkpoint, getting to the other side, renting a car, getting your baggage, getting to the hotel and everything, it ends up being about 8 hours anyway. So if I can get there in 8 hours in a car, it saves me from having to rent a car on the opposite side. It also saves the airfare, and also makes me not have to be potentially subjected to delays from airline scheduling. So this one falls in that category. And you might ask, well, if I have a car, why would I rent one? And it seems like the IRS has been increasing the mileage rate over the last several years. Right now it's about 64 cents a mile. And when you do the calculation of how far it is between where I live and Memphis, Tennessee, it'd be really expensive to take my own car and expense it back. So I try to be a frugal agent of the company and spend the least cost in order to make business trips as possible. And in this case, it was renting a car. I'm an EV enthusiast, so I looked around, and there's a couple of options for renting electric vehicles. One of which is a local company here in Charlotte that will let you rent them by the week, which is pretty inexpensive, but they didn't have any inventory. Hertz, though, does rent Model 3s. And this one is great. It's brand new. It's got 1,000 miles on it. Picked it up yesterday. And it's a standard range, which I thought might have been an issue, but I'm showing 244 miles at a 90% charge, which for me is more than enough, because if you average, 60 miles per hour, with stops and whatnot, 3 hours is 180 miles. And by that time, I'm ready to get out and stretch my legs anyway. So a stop at a supercharger in order to catch up on social media, check emails, things like that is perfectly fine. So I'll be leaving tomorrow, which will be Sunday, and I've programmed in enough time where I'm not pressured and able to enjoy a EV road trip on the interstates, going from supercharger to supercharger, and not having to worry about getting stuck in traffic or whatever. If I do, it's perfectly fine. There's no rush. It's a Sunday, and be cruising into Memphis somewhere around dinner time, I would imagine. Check into the hotel, unpack, do a little bit of ironing, have a nice meal, and go to sleep and get ready for the work week. Returning on the following Friday, and similar thing, I'll wake up in the morning, I'll hop in the car, and I'll come back home leisurely and return the car at Hertz, and then either Uber home or get a ride from someone in the family. So that's the plan. And should be fun. I'm intending to stop at most superchargers along the route, because part of the fun for me is exploring. And one of the superchargers looks like it may not be open yet, but it might have just gotten open, so that one is going to be kind of cool. And the nice thing about when you rent a Tesla from Hertz is when you plug into a supercharger, it goes right to your Hertz account, and then it gets billed back to the company card if you're traveling on business. So you don't have to worry about your own cards, and you can basically pull up to any supercharger and just charge. That's my intention. I'm basically not going to pass by a supercharger. Although the Tesla app will send me as far as possible and also calculate in the shortest amount of charging times, that's not really my goal. My goal is to enjoy a nice EV road trip. So I'll be stopping and doing frequent charges just to kind of explore the environment. And standard range, no problem whatsoever. I already looked, and I'll be stumbling across superchargers down Interstate 40. So anyway, hope to see you all out there. one of the things I found as an existing Tesla owner is important to do is Teslas come with a key card, and what Hertz does is they cover the key card in this plastic casing and they give it to you as a key. But I found it important to always have a backup. So my personal card, Tesla Model 3, I use my cell phone as the primary mode of entry. Then I keep the key card in my wallet as a backup, just in case my cell phone loses power or whatever. But with rental, I didn't have the option. Actually, I probably could have put it onto the cell phone, but I just didn't want to do that for privacy reasons. So instead, I have this ring. Wife got a couple of these a couple of weeks back for the Model 3, and they're pretty convenient. They sync up to the car very easily, and there's no personally identifiable information associated with them. It's just an RFID signal, and so that's what I'm using as my backup. And I've tested it. It does work just fine. The car will open and close and also start using just the ring. So should I lose this for whatever reason, at least I have a backup. If I'm 600 miles from home, I always want to have a backup. So arrived at the first supercharger. This one's in Hickory, North Carolina, at a Sheetz gas station, which is always nice. Some superchargers are placed in locations where there's really no facilities, which is a little bit frustrating, but Sheetz gas stations are great because they have made-to-order food. They've got grab-and-go food, drinks, restrooms, nice places to sit outside when the weather's nice. Right now it's kind of rainy. So nice supercharger location. I've never been here. I've been through Hickory quite a few times on road trips, but normally I'm stopping at a CCS station in order to get a DC fast charge. They got 2 DC fast chargers in Hickory, which is kind of unusual because it's a pretty small town, not including the supercharger. One is a Duke Energy Park and Plug. Just got activated in January. Right now it's February. So it's brand new. Actually, I don't think it's officially open yet, but people have been using it. And PlugShare has got it registered as open. And then there's another one at a Nissan dealership. And apparently, it seems like Nissan dealerships have DC fast chargers available at many locations. I don't know if it's all locations, but it seems as though that the Nissan brand requires dealerships to install DC fast chargers as a result of their selling Nissan Leafs for so many years. And those DC fast chargers are free to the public. Generally, they're 50 kilowatt ABB stations, so they're not fast, but they sure are nice and convenient, and the price is right. They're free. So I've charged at Nissan dealerships on road trips quite often, especially the one here in Hickory, another one down in Gastonia, North Carolina. So I understand also other brands are going to be requiring their dealerships to install DC fast chargers on their properties as well. GM has an Ultium 360 program, which will be installing fast chargers at Pilot Flying J locations, which could rival the Tesla Supercharger and Electrify America if it's done right. We'll see. Ford is requiring their dealers to put in DC fast chargers in order to have access to the electrified fleet. So there's a lot more DC fast chargers going to be coming online here shortly. So that's encouraging. But right now I'm charging up. Didn't really need the charge, pulled in at a 60% state of charge, but my intention today is to basically stop at every supercharger along the way, and there's quite a few of them. So here's stop number 1. So I'm here at the Interstate Rest Stop outside of Marion, North Carolina. It's a really nice location. Marion is a common exit point for people leaving Interstate 40 going into what's known as the Highlands region of North Carolina, which is home to many destinations that I've done EV road trips on. There's Linville Falls, Linville Gorge, Mount Mitchell State Park, Boone, North Carolina you can get to, off the Marion exit, and so lots of points of interest up there. Western North Carolina becomes very mountainous, and although that district is called the Highlands region, it's more populous than other areas of Western North Carolina that I'm going to be passing through. The grade of the mountains starts to increase severely as you head further west, making it very difficult for people to have, towns and houses and things. Just the grading of the mountains is too severe. So anyway, here in Marion, I'm getting ready to head out, and a bit of a pro tip for people doing road trips in Teslas. Not every supercharger stop has amenities. In fact, I've been in supercharger stops where I went to a adjoining fast food restaurant, and there's really nasty gram signs all over the place saying restrooms for patrons only, and nowhere else to use facilities. So what I commonly do when I'm on a Tesla road trip and planning to stop at superchargers I've never been to before is use restroom facilities at rest stops on the interstate. That's what they're there for. They're clean, convenient, and right off the expressway, so very quick stops. And then at the superchargers, catch up on social media and check your email. Charging at the Old Fort, North Carolina supercharger. This is the last exit on Interstate 40 before you start to have a very severe elevation climb. It's a nice stop. With the elevation climb, there's also going to be a drop in temperature, and right now I'm hovering around 35 degrees with rain, so hopefully once we get up there we don't dip below freezing. I don't think so. But the roads are uncharacteristically empty. And the locals around here, I used to live in this area, get very spooked with winter weather because they don't have snow removal or ice removal equipment like they do in other areas of the country. Normally everyone just hunkers down and waits for it to melt. So maybe the locals have been spooked and they know something I don't, but we're about to find out. Anyway, as far as the restroom comment from the previous video, this is kind of a case in point. There's a Stuckey's restaurant right here, but it is closed. This is the Bible Belt territory, and it's Sunday morning. So I could charge my car all day, but I cannot use the restroom. So it's fortunate that I stopped at the interstate rest stop prior to coming here. The city of Asheville, North Carolina is kind of unique because it's a municipality that's in an area that's surrounded by high elevations. And the normal cities that are of consequence, 500,000 people or more, are in the lower lands surrounding Asheville. Asheville doesn't have much of a population, but they've got 2 supercharger locations. And the reason being is that Interstate 40 cuts through Asheville, and also Interstate 26. So right near those, right near that junction of 26 and 40, they've got 2 superchargers, and it's really an issue of capacity because the first supercharger that went in here at the Asheville Outlet Mall started to become overwhelmed during busy time. So they put in a second supercharger on the other side of town, but it's only, maybe 10-15 minutes from this location. So it's unusual for a town of this size to have 2 superchargers so close to each other, but the reason being is because of the 2 interstates that crisscross right through Asheville, North Carolina. And this location I like. My in-laws live near the Asheville Regional Airport, which is about 20 minutes from here. So my wife and I frequent this supercharger quite a bit with our the Model 3 that we own. So come visit the in-laws. Can't quite make it home. We probably could under bare minimum circumstances, but we never push it to that. We'll just swing by the supercharger and kind of give ourselves a little boost to get home with a comfort level. But it's also nice because right next to it is a Waffle House and a McDonald's. Now, when I travel on business, I try to be a frugal good agent of the company, and the two places I commonly eat are Waffle House and McDonald's. Those are the two places I like to eat at. They're low-cost alternatives for food that's, hot and satisfying is about what you can call it. And who doesn't like McDonald's French fries? I don't know if there's anyone out there who doesn't like McDonald's French fries. So the car is charging up, and I do have some work to do here because there are no superchargers through western North Carolina. The area out there becomes sparsely populated, and there are CCS chargers, but no Tesla superchargers until I make it to the city of Knoxville, Tennessee, on the other side of the border, after we punch through the severe grade of the mountains of western North Carolina. It sure is a pretty drive, though. There's several points of interest through there: the Cherokee National Forest, the Pisgah National Forest, the Nantahala National Forest, and of course the granddaddy of them all, the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, is going to be just to the south of where I'm going to be traveling, which, if you're not familiar, is the most visited national park in the federal national park system. Just a spectacularly beautiful piece of land that is very accessible by car, and beautiful place to drive during fall foliage season and other times. Just a really nice park. And after we punch through those desolately populated locations, we'll be basically doing the job of covering miles once we reach Knoxville. The grade is going to even out, and it'll just be the Interstate 40 stretch from one end of Tennessee to the other, which Tennessee is a narrow state, but it's very long, and we'll be covering the whole state on Interstate 40 coming up here. Pulled into the Haywood County rest area off Interstate 40, which is nestled deep in western North Carolina, basically in no man's land, surrounded by very severe graded mountains, making road building difficult. And the way they do it is they put in a lot of bridges, and they do a lot of grading, and they cut through a lot of granite, making it for an expensive stretch of interstate. But this rest area I've stopped at quite a bit because I used to live in western North Carolina, and basically anytime you want to go west anywhere, you got to go through this stretch of road. And stopped here with my family a lot. They've got picnic tables for eating road grub with the fam, and restroom facilities, vending facilities, and just a really picturesque point along the road in order to stop and enjoy the nature. You're surrounded by rhododendrons and old growth forest. Really pretty. currently pulling about 150 kilowatts at the Knoxville supercharger. The town has 2 superchargers, and a couple of different interstates come through here. One is an interstate that goes to Atlanta, and then of course 40, which cuts east-west. So not that big of a town. Definitely bigger than Asheville though, and definitely has enough capacity for 2 superchargers. It's a Sunday morning, and there's enough Teslas around here. Just since I've been here, 2 additional ones have been pulling in order to supercharge. There's a good pizza place right across the parking lot. I know because I had to travel to this location to charge on my way to a business trip in 2022. My company has an office in Knoxville, Tennessee, so I came over here to do some networking work. So when I was here, I charged and I went over to the pizza place. It's really good. It's handmade pizza. It's kind of crafted pizza and made to order. Good food. I'm going to hold out though, because I saw billboards for Buc-ee's, and I've never been to one. I've heard a lot about Buc-ee's, that it's a really extensive travel center, a cool place to stop and take a break. So I'm holding my calories until I get there, and it's about an hour down the road. So I'm going to charge up and head to Buc-ee's for lunch.
Destination will be on the right. Now your destination is on the right.
Didn't know it when I was coming here, but there's a Tesla supercharger on the property. How convenient is that? Well, I've been to a lot of superchargers, but this has to be the most, the one with the most amenities. This is crazy. This supercharger is right across from this Buc-ee's off Interstate 40. Tons of stalls for the superchargers. There's actually 2 locations on the property, plus one across the street as well. And once you go inside, there's convenient hot fast food and shopping, restrooms, clean restrooms, full bakery, and all super fast. You get through there really quick. The place is amazing. The tour of Interstate 40 superchargers continues, and this location was not marked as open on PlugShare just a few days ago, but it is open now. It's brand new. It's the Jackson Plaza in, I think it's pronounced Cookieville, Tennessee. Nice charger. The problem is that it's about 2 miles off the interstate in order to get here. So that's relatively inconvenient in order to have to drive through local roads 2 miles off the interstate. All the other ones that I've been to so far today have been immediately off the interstate. You didn't even have to go to a light in order to get to them. They were just immediately off the interstate. This one was a bit of a trek from the interstate interchange to get to this plaza. And there's not many amenities around here. We're stuck in the back of a Food Lion parking lot. I suppose I could walk over and get pizza, or go into the Food Lion, use the restrooms if I needed to.
but that's about it. So probably if I was going to be doing an I-40 run and I was pressed for time, I would just stretch all the way into the superchargers that are in Nashville. And I think there's 3 in there. Our next stop is going to be the one just past downtown. So here's the Dickerson, Tennessee supercharger. And I wanted to provide a quick summary of the trip while the daylight still holds. I only have one supercharger stop left, and then the final push to the hotel. So started off this morning before sunrise, and basically stopped at every supercharger along Interstate 40 that my route crossed paths with. I was doing it just as an exploratory exercise for my own personal enjoyment. Spent on average 10 minutes at each supercharger. I think one supercharger I spent closer to 15 minutes at. The short duration was because I was stopping so frequently. I didn't really need the charges. I basically only needed half of the charging stops that I made. I could have very easily cut it down in half if I wanted to. The final thoughts concerning doing an interstate road trip on business or for pleasure in an electric vehicle, Tesla specifically, it's non-consequential as far as I'm concerned. People who do electric road trips generally try to push the shortest amount of time at charging stops as possible, and they use the AI engines and the onboard navigation or a better route planner or something like that in order to calculate with the charging curve of their vehicle the shortest amount of time spent charging in order to get the most kilowatts pulled at each charging stop with the higher portion of the charging curve. And I think that does it a little bit of a disservice. I mean, we could calculate number of minutes spent charging, but there's also the added time of pulling off the interstate and getting to a charger that you should, in all honesty, factor in also. The short answer, in my opinion, is it's really not that different. I mean, a road trip is going to be consumed with wheels spinning on an interstate. That's where your time is spent. And if we want to get nitpicky about, on an electric vehicle, it's longer because you have these charging stops versus in a gas car, you have to stop less, every 500, 600 miles in a gas car. But people are going to stop more frequently because they're going to go to the bathroom also. So I think it's kind of a nitpicky argument when you start talking about times. The point with an electric vehicle road trip, in my opinion, is, especially with a Tesla, you can do it. It's possible. Not only is it possible, it's really not an event, especially in a Tesla. Every single supercharger I pulled into, there was at least 6 chargers. Most of them had more than 10. This one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 chargers, none of which were broken. They were spaced for a standard range Model 3 with enough distance between them where I could have skipped half of them. So there's more than enough chargers along the interstates, and it's very easy to get from point A to point B. The nice thing about running an electric vehicle and taking a road trip is you don't have to pay for any gas. You just plug in and it goes to the account with the rental agency, and then you get a final bill that tallies it all up. Kind of like the way they do it with tolls nowadays. So I think that's the big point, is that with an electric vehicle, if you choose to go that way, is possible. Not only is it possible, it's been possible for a while, it's going to stay possible for a long time. More and more DC fast chargers are going in the ground. So with that said, I'm going to finish up charging here, go to the last supercharger, and then make the final push into Memphis. So I wasn't going to comment, I was just going to take a few pictures and go on my way, but this one's a little too unique not to mention. The supercharger is at the entrance point to a whole village campus dedicated to Casey Jones. So apparently he was from this area or something. Casey Jones of song legend. And there's a store that sells candy, and on one side is a sit-down restaurant serving country food. On the other side is a quick service restaurant serving Mexican food. And in the middle is an ice cream store with other sundries for sale, little bits of candy and collectibles, things like that. Very strange, but interesting. Kind of an engaging place to walk around as your car charges.